Shalom. Before I begin, I want to give all praises to Yahawashi, Yahawashi, Ba'ashem, Rakakwadash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and elders who are here, Stone and Shalom to the I came teaching his word about the four corners and true sincerity. Back on that lesson. Through this man, pray Yahawashi, Yahawashi. I want to be edifying into the elect. Alright, the topic of this lesson, it's just going into why, we need Yahawashi, to return. Okay, why we need Yahawashi to return? Really, because of the condition of the earth. Alright, the earth needs new management. Alright, the condition is just getting worse and worse. There's more sicknesses. Alright, there's less freedom. Less privacy. The quality of the air. The food, the quality. Everything. Alright, it's getting out of whack, and this is gonna keep getting, worse and worse. Alright, and the wickedness, the iniquity, the constant sinning, just getting worse, and worse. Alright. That's all we need Yahawashi to return, because when Yahawashi, ultimately does return, he's gonna put, a stop, to all of this. Because like the scriptures say, in Isaiah 9:6, it says, "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty Power, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace." Right? He's talking about Yahawashi. Alright, to set up his government. The way he's gonna set up his government is by taking down this, current rulership. Alright, by Esau Edom. We just have to be patient. We just have to be patient of what the Lord is trying to do. And we see it. We rejoice and we giving praises to the Lord. Because we know that, our salvation is near that when we believe. Alright, because we hasten the kingdom of Yahawashi. Alright. Of the increase of his government. In peace there shall be no end. Right? Imagine a place, a rulership. Just constant peace, no wars, like nearly no wars. It's like no wars amongst anybody. Alright, everybody's living peaceably. Speaking about the Israelites. We all getting along. There's no infighting. Jake being wicked as hell. The heathens, alright, they're in order. Right? It says, upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth even forever. Right? Forever rulership. Alright, there won't be a time in our kingdom where, how it is, now or how it was back then, where we would go off and, and the Lord would, send a savior. We have to go through captivity again. Alright, but a forever kingdom. That's why it's going to be forever. We're never going to, go out. The Lord is constantly going to be dealing. Constantly going to be dealing with us on that level. And mostly because of our new bodies. And also because we're going to be the judges, of the earth. Starting with Yahawashi, because he's going to be the king. But, us being that governing body, we're going to be part of that system, of ordering it and establishing, judgment. And justice. It's like it. It's like it. part of that system of ordering it with judgment and justice. Being that governing body, because we're not to teach, the heathens and judge them as well. All right, when they go off, because we're gonna be teaching them, the law, statutes, commandments. They're gonna be coming at us to learn. All right, they may not get it at first, but that's how how Esau have the Constitution, the law of the land, within the laws that you have to follow. And the kingdom is going to be the laws and statutes and commandments of the scriptures. Because that's how we're supposed to live on the earth truly. Not the system that Esau has. It's a broken, wicked system. All right, there's no true justice. All right, there's no true judgment. That's why there is no peace. There is no order, to it. All right, and that's why, again, we need Yahawashi. All right. I called him, all right, the Prince of Peace. Okay. You go to Sirach. Sirach chapter 10. Start at 1. It says a wise judge will instruct his people. Right, instruct. All right, Esau doesn't give true instructions. He doesn't give righteous instructions. He gives wicked instructions. Okay. It says, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered. You see that? Well ordered. Now, what does the word order mean? We're going to add them on. Not this type of order. It says in proper sequence or arrangement. It says not in proper sequence or orderly arrangement. It says principally mechanical. It says for the purpose of, right? It says without delay. It says to give order to arrange in a row or rank. All right, it says set or keep in order. To give commands for or to instruct authoritatively. Command to be made, done, or issued. All right, it says sequence, tediness. Right? It says a system, right? Organization. Esau doesn't have a proper organization. All right, it says, turn this out. It says the arrangement or disposition of people or things in relation to each other according to a particular sequence, pattern, or method. Right, Esau doesn't have a proper, method, all right, sequence. Everything is just out of whack. It says a state in which the laws and rules regulating the public behavior or if members of a committee are observed and authority is obeyed. Right? See what else to say. It's the quality, nature, or importance of something. Right? There's a lot. And the correct condition for operation or use. I said by order, according to direction given by the proper authority. All right, so this condition of the earth, all right, the orders that this devil gives is not in the correct, condition for operation. All right, that's why, again, the condition of the earth is in the way it is. About how he treats the earth. He doesn't treat it like it's, something to take care of. He just does whatever to it. All right, that's why there's so much pollution and there's no laws against doing certain things. There's no land Sabbath. People, you let people eat, anything. By letting people eat anything, you allow companies to go into the oceans and take things out of the ocean which are meant to clean the ocean. and you let them sell it, all right, for profit. All right, like the lobsters and the crabs. All right, you let you let people eat certain animals like pigs and things that's supposed to again clean the earth. You let people, sell these things like they're a delicacy. You are killing animals that are supposed to be extinct for what, money and prizes, things that are just, doesn't make any, fucking sense. There's no, true logic, to, his madness, right? There's no order to it. He doesn't do things in the correct sequence. It says, as the judge of the people is himself, and so are his officers, and what manner of man the ruler of the city is, such as all that dwell therein. So because the ruler is a very wicked, sick, twisted man, all right, you gonna see that amongst the people. That's why, people act like the way they do. That's why you look at the government. That's why the government the way it is, all right, because the man at the top, his influence on the earth it spreads like like a sickness, right? Like you have those sicknesses where you get touched and you get sick. It's like the flu, right? You don't want to get the next person sick with it, but it just keeps on going. It just keeps on going down the ladder, even amongst the people. All right, the people are wicked. All right, they don't show no mercy, right? They don't care, especially when you're driving on the road. Shit, just using little examples like that. Your boss at work, wicked as hell. Your manager, wicked as hell. Your coworker, wicked as hell. Because there's no true righteousness. There's no true justice. It says, in an unwise king destroy his people, but through the prudence of them which are authority, the city shall be inhabited. Right, and this is what Esau Edom is doing. He's slowly killing, destroying his people. Whether it would be, mentally, by the things that you watch, spiritually, by people to practice certain things, and definitely physically by the foods that we eat and by the air that we breathe, and the multiple jobs that we have to work, right? Because Esau Edom is in power, right? You can't, you under the rule of Yahawashi, we don't gotta go through that bullshit. Even the point that he don't gotta go through the shit that they go through here, right? We still go judge their ass, of course, right? But we ain't gonna be like Esau Edom. We gonna do things accordingly, right? It says, the power of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, and in due time he will set over it one that is profitable, and that's ultimately talking about, all right, Yahawashi, because he's the profitable one for the earth. All right, Esau is unprofitable, for the earth. Okay, so when Esau Edom does get taken out of the way, all right, we know that, the good is coming, and that's going to be Yahawashi. All right, this is 2nd Ezra 4. All right, that's lucky. Second Ezra 4. But 2nd Ezra 4 and 28. It says, but as concerning the things whereof thou askest me, I will tell thee, for the evil is sown, but, it says, but the destruction thereof is not yet come. Right, so everything is for an appointed time, right? Everything is for an appointed time. The destruction of Esau Edom is coming. All right, we just have to wait for certain prophecy to take place. All right, it's the Lord's movie. The Lord does it on the time that he wants to do, but we know it's definitely, coming. It says, if therefore that which is sown be not turned upside down, and if the place where the evil is sown pass not away, then cannot it come that is sown with good. So Esau Edom must, his kingdom has to be destroyed. So people ask us, oh, why you keep, saying, why you want America to be destroyed? Shit like that, right? Well, number one, you fucking off, because why do you want this place to continue? All right, it be the niggas that's working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, chasing the bag, ain't got shit under their name. They got the baby mamas and, they got, the worst life in the world, and they telling you why you want America to be destroyed. All right, it be Jake too. When you ask certain Edomites America will be destroyed, they be like, they know, they understand. All right, but Jake wicked ass, they be treating like this place like this is fucking a 5-star, Michelin, meal or some shit. Or like this top service. All right, Jake, you in fucking hell and you a slave. All right. We want Yahawashi to to burn this bitch, all right? Because it's a bitch, to burn this bitch, all right, and destroy this bitch the smithereens, all right? That's what we looking towards, especially, and it's more than just, kingdom just being destroyed out these bodies that we in, Esau completely, Esau fucked this up, right? These bodies are, completely fucked this up. All right, and then, again, they subject unto sin. So imagine a man who sin himself in power in the bodies that loves to go off. You fighting 10 times hard, right? You fighting injured, right? But hey, with that alone is that's what's edifying. I want to give our praises to Yahawashi, Al-Shai, Bashim, Kakwadash, and the Barn City Apostles and elders gave those done. Shalom to the Akim, teaching about the four corners.